Next on the topic is stop trying to attract people that you know that you cannot physically pull. If you are not an 8 or a 9, do not try to pull an 8 or a 9. If you know that you're only a 5.5, a good 6 on a day that you put yourself together, you equally try to get somebody that's a 6 to a 7, and you're pushing for that 7. Okay, let me tell you something. You're pushing for that 7. Don't think that you're going to get that 7.
Episode 20, No Hipsters Pod. Your boy Ron, the founder of NoHipstersAllowed.com. And this week, our co-host is the founder of Vanede, my good friend, Nneka Obiekwe.
Hey guys, how are you? Thanks for inviting me, Ron.
Of course. Tell us a little bit about Vanede.
Sure. So Vanede is an anti-sexual assault and domestic violence training organization. And I think what really kind of sets us apart from some of the other organizations out there is the fact that we really focus on enabling and empowering beauty spaces and beauty professionals to be advocates against sexual assault and domestic violence. And we do that in a number of ways. We host events and workshops in beauty spaces. It's meant to be a space that is already inviting to women. It's meant to be in a space where women are constantly frequenting them already, but more importantly, one that already has an empowering feel to it, right? We love doing our shopping. We love being in those fun and beautifully aesthetic places. And so we use that as a way to draw people in and host really dynamic, really engaging, really even controversial workshops that are meant to be informative and to help people walk away from them understanding the nuances of interpersonal violence in a different way. And so in addition to that, we do offer tailored trainings to a number of different types of organizations. We've done high schools, universities. We've even partnered with the U.S. military. So, and so, we really are all about bringing new and engaging content based on the needs of who it is that we're working with the goal of getting people to think in a different way and creating a safe space to learn and to share.
All right, since you are an expert in this area, I think the most appropriate first topic will be the Trey Songz saga of this past week. So if you've been on social media, you will have seen that there is this IG model. Her name is AJ. Her handle is AJ. And she was on the No Jumper podcast, and she was talking about her, her escapades in the circles of famous and powerful men. She talks about, who she's been with. And so she mentioned that she'd been with Trey Songz.
I didn't know what was happening. He just did it. He just was
bitch, please stay who?
Fuck Trey Songz. I don't give a fuck. Fuck him. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
He wants
wait.
me.
How did he surprise pee on you? What?
Okay, so I go to the bathroom. I go to the bathroom to wipe the nut off my face, like in between rounds. He follows me in there. He's like, get in the bathtub. I'm like, okay. So I do, and I'm like laying down. He's standing over me, like jacking off, and he's like, "Play with your pussy." I'm like, "Okay." So I do, and then he's like, "Play with your tits." So I do, and then he literally just peed on me like that, and I was like, "What the fuck on my eyelashes?" And he's like, "You're fine."
Some added context is that in the same interview, she talks about having been with 7 players on a basketball team.
My birthday is Memorial Day weekend. On my birthday, I seen them all at Dre's, like this one team.
Okay.
She's so shy. It's so cute, baby.
Like, shit. And I don't know. I was getting fucked in a hotel room. They all pulled up, and I sucked their dick.
Put the mic down.
The whole team.
7.
7 basketball players in a row? Mm-hmm. How was that?
I was fucked up. I didn't fuck any of them, though.
She said.
What happened to the nuts?
Swallowed.
All of them?
Yeah.
And so people are sort of using that as making her always a willing participant no matter what happens. And I don't think that kind of precludes her from victimhood. And so I kind of wanted you to for your opinion on the whole situation, but also just kind of speak directly to, the consent aspect of this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So one of our Vanede team members keeps me young and is always sending me these posts on Instagram. One of the things I thought was interesting, first and foremost, is that I guess when this all came out, they started drawing the connection to Keke Palmer as well, kind of saying that there's been some patterns established. And I think that just in general, when we're looking at the prevalence of sexual assault, we do find that, those who perpetuate violence do tend to be repeat offenders. So it's always a red flag. People have made comments about, kind of inappropriate behavior. And I think that in and of itself, oftentimes really helps to substantiate claims that are made, right? Like there's a pattern of behavior that's existed long, before this particular person told their story. We should listen, and we should, really look to see what teeth it has. But yes, so I think these conversations are difficult, and it's right about now. We're seeing conversations like this also happen more on college campuses too. People who are saying there are things that are taking place, and it seemed like she was with it, so what's the big deal? Or she has a certain reputation. So what's, it sounds to me like it's just all par for the course. And the fact is that's simply not the case. There's really, first and foremost, nothing that anyone can do to make it okay to be treated outside of the lines of what they felt was appropriate. Whether you are someone who chooses to have sex for a living or not, you still have the right to have boundaries for yourself, and you have the right to enforce those sexual boundaries, and you have the right to speak up when those boundaries are crossed. So no one should be silent simply because of their history or because they have had sex with that person before. If she did not want to be urinated on, she did not deserve to be urinated on. And if there are other things that took place, then that shouldn't have happened either. But to speak to that broader question of consent, and to your point, again, why people tend to discredit women that might have a history similar to hers. Again, I think to your point, it's just the fact that people don't understand what sexual assault is. And we unfortunately pick and choose who we think is worthy of being listened to, worthy of being believed, worthy of being respected. And oftentimes it is attributed to, everything from race to sexual orientation, to lifestyle, all sorts of different things. And that's a really dangerous and problematic occurrence. And it is pretty much at the core of what rape culture is.
Wow. And it's funny. So even after all this happens, his first attempt to clear his name to show screenshots of text messages between them. And all he does is just show us that she calls him the N-word all willy-nilly, and which was just embarrassing, I thought.
To be clear, consent is everyone's right, and it isn't always communicated verbally. And that can also make it really complicated. And I think what it really boils down to is if someone has any concern around it, we got to learn to start asking questions. Are you so comfortable with this? There are people who are okay with that. There are people who are like, whatever, I'm down for whatever. Well, you should find out if she's one of those people first. Just, you don't make assumptions of what someone's comfortable with doing based on what you believe about them and what you think that they should have to do. I think I saw some text about, I don't know if it was the same text message, but something about, she said she couldn't have sex, but she could give him,
eat his ass,
head or something like that. And I think that, and people look at that and they're like, see, she's, look at how she's talking. And it's like, okay, so she actually laid out to you what she's willing to do. That's it. So she's willing to stop anything outside of those parameters, despite how ridiculous you think those parameters are. But I do think there's a lot of value to I think there's two sides. There's the social media and all that stuff, that all the discourse that happens can be really concerning and problematic. And it, unfortunately, when the wrong things are said and there's no compassion, it can unfortunately push a survivor deeper into their experience without feeling as though they can come forward and talk about it. And we have to be really careful about not contributing to someone's trauma by making really insensitive comments when it comes to, topics of sexual assault. And then on the other hand, I think anytime we put it all on the table and we just talk it out, I think there's always value in discourse around conversations that we typically try to keep in the dark. Sometimes that is in the alternative, sometimes that is actually the catalyst for people to come forward. And people do feel emboldened and empowered when these conversations happen. So, I like to hear it. I like to know that people are even talking about it. I like to see people trying to cancel Trey. Don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately, because, the issues of Trey and all these other guys, they existed before Trey got here. And until we stop letting the microaggressive behavior and we stop letting the patterns happen within the entire industry, it'll be very difficult to cancel one person.
This past week, Megan hopped on IG Live and confirmed what we kind of already knew, and that's that Tory Lanez shot her. And she, for the second time, addressed rumors about her, allegedly hitting him, and that's why he shot her. That didn't happen. She said that before, and she's saying it again. But now we have new detail, and she explained that she was walking away from the car after they got into an argument, and then he just shoots her in both feet. And so the whole thing is just really unfortunate that people were just so willing to question a firsthand account about what happened to a person. And I'm not sure what people think she would gain from lying about an incident that happened. She's the bigger star. There's literally nothing to gain from lying about this. And so it's really unfortunate. And, people would assume because he's been so quiet that he feels remorse. But the fact of the matter is that Tory Lanez probably doesn't feel any remorse because, number one, he's allegedly, putting out fake stories about the incidents. Apparently all the rumors about her hitting him apparently came from his camp. But also he's seen liking a post by former NFL player and abuser himself, Larry Johnson, who had this inane tweet about, women who want guys who are in demon time, yada, yada. And, the shade post of the tweet, Tory likes it. And so it just shows that he clearly isn't in a space of remorse. He clearly hasn't done enough introspection for him to even think about liking it, but much so like it and like it for everyone to see. He didn't do that from his burner account. He did it from his actual Tory Lanez verified account. And so, the whole thing is embarrassing. The whole thing is sad. And I was just wondering what you thought about it.
It's embarrassing and it's sad. It's a hot mess, basically. Gosh, I was actually really disappointed about this one. The thing is, when you have to cancel people who sometimes their music you listen to. And you're like, dang, Tory, I actually just started listening to your music and it turns out you're a douchebag. And I had a feeling because that quarantine radio thing,
very
misogynistic, so not totally surprised. And I think that's again where we talk about microaggressions. Wow. What do you look for and what are red flags? That's a red flag. Some of the stuff we saw him doing. So we know, we already had an idea that maybe he didn't have a whole lot of respect for women. That's red flag number one. But yeah, as far as the situation itself, I also think it's just a very bizarre situation, right? I'm not someone who I guess follows celebrities enough to even know that they were friends. So I'm like, I was trying to understand the whole thing. I'm like, so y'all was what? So y'all were at a party? Okay, so so celebrities, y'all got cliques too, And so then I'm like, I've never heard someone getting shot in the foot. I'm thinking, what was he aiming at the floor? Was he aiming at her foot? Just the whole thing is crazy. But it never occurred to me that she would lie about it. Why he would do it crosses my mind. Why he is, is it insecurity? Is he just a sociopath, quite frankly? All those things cross my mind. But I think the idea of, because it's so bizarre, people I've noticed when it comes to, violence against women really tend to not believe what they feel doesn't make sense. Right? Because to them, it has to make sense in their mind for it to happen. And everyone knows that's not true. There are a lot of things that happen.
Right.
Yeah, she must have punched him, right? Why would he just shoot her out of nowhere? What? Because he's crazy. I don't know. It's so I think that is honestly where a lot of that is coming from because, they're just thinking well, it's the foot and what did she do? Kick him or something? It's no. So I tend to err on the side of just mind your business and not say anything at all. If for whatever reason you could say something that could potentially be harmful. And I think what's even more, something to note is watching Megan Thee Stallion, at this point, she's now addressed it like several times. And one of those times she was very emotional. And I always tell people, like, if your opinion has the potential of hurting someone, especially as it relates to their trauma or their traumatic experience, just stay out of it. There's really nothing you can lose by minding your own business and letting everything come to light in its own time. If you truly believe something, quote unquote, needs to come to light. You know, we can't tell people what to believe and how to believe things, but we can tell people to show compassion and respect, and learn to just shut up, you know? And so that's kind of how I feel about it. I'll tell you from a branding perspective and from a woman who supports women, I have learned that I don't try to like dictate people's opinions anymore. I try to create safe spaces for people to have one and then have some really logical and like respectful conversations to get them essentially to agree with me. And so in this case, when I see people, you know, yada, 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 I don't believe her or whatever, I think just shut up and let it come out. Like, you know what I mean? Like, she's crying on the internet. What else do you want from her? Like it just, I still it really bothers me.
You know, wrap my mind around what people think she has to gain from any of this. Like what will be the point in going through all of this?
But you know what? That is always the case. When someone comes forward to say that they've been assaulted in some way, they are oftentimes not believed, right? So we already know that for whatever reason, we tend to call people, I never understood it. Why do you call people a liar when they say they've been assaulted, whether it's sexual assault or domestic violence? It happens too much. And the question is always, what do they have to gain? There's very rarely anything to gain, even when people believe, because I think, so I'm going to call something out. You just said she has more money, she's more successful. But that power dynamic is oftentimes what's used against people when they don't have more money or they're not more successful, right? Even in those cases, most people don't have anything to gain because the shame that's associated with telling the truth and letting people know that you were demeaned in that way is typically worse than the assault itself. And like, if you're going to come out, that's so brave because you know already that unfortunately in the culture we live in, people are going to try to discredit you and call you a liar. It's very unfortunate. So whenever people make that decision to say something, it's courageous. There's never a reason and there's never anything to gain from telling your truth. But unfortunately, we create that narrative all the time. And it makes it really hard for people, to be honest.
BreonnaCon, a convention based on activism in the name of Breonna Taylor, the young EMT worker who was killed in her home by the Louisville police. There's a convention being organized by an organization called Until Freedom, and it is an organization led by Tamika Mallory, who is one of the Twitter activist types. You know, she's part of that class of, you know, internet famous, activists, and who are all, you know, possibly maybe grifters and always have questionable associations. And so she has this, this convention is taking place from August 22nd to August 25th in Louisville. Apparently, Tamika Mallory and her team have actually camped out in Louisville for the last a few weeks now. And so now she is essentially, from what it appears, profiting off of Breonna Taylor. I mean, the event claims to be doing, other things. Let me actually just read the press release. Until Freedom today announced final details for its highly anticipated BreonnaCon engagement in Louisville. The multi-day event will direct resources, talent, and energy towards achieving justice for Breonna Taylor. This first of its kind community convention will include workshops, trainings, plenaries, women's and men's empowerment programs, a school supplies giveaway, community barbecue, which will be called Bree-bacue. Oh boy. And faith revival. Like the whole thing is just, one of the tweets about this said, does Tamika Mallory not have any friends? And I really have to wonder myself. But I don't even think it's about like her not having friends. It's really just a shamelessness in their pursuit of fame and money, and they're willing to do it on the grave of anyone. you know, and so I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on this.
I think it's a little strange. I think it's tacky. I can't really speak to whether or not, you know, her intentions are good, right? I wasn't there when the thought came to her, and for all I know, she really thinks this idea makes sense. I think there's just so many other ways this can be done too, because really, Breonna, you know, Breonna's life has created a much needed discourse around, you know, the way Black women in America are treated, ignored, you know, how our experiences, our traumas, the violence against us are pretty much overlooked. And I think that if she really thought she was doing something impactful, like, leave Breonna out of it, first of all, like, leave her name out of it. And like you said, leave the profit part. But if you want to bring a discourse into more of a organized fashion that would really create some level of empowerment and uplift for Black women, you know, there's so many ways she could have done it. You know, there's the political aspects, you know, and making sure that, you know, laws and policies are written in such a way that understands and acknowledges the inequities that Black women face. Cool. Why don't we have some discourse around that? Why don't we get some politicians in one space? I don't know. But to me, to do this whole BreonnaCon, like you said, it's profiting off of what is essentially now more of a hashtag than it is justice. It doesn't, and I think that even if her intentions are good, she knew that was very intentional, which makes it tacky.
After a while, the hashtags just start to feel a little detached, where it became too trendy. And so I kind of, you know, we were kind of heading towards this. I didn't think anyone would be this tacky, as you said. And the thing about people like Tamika Mallory is I do think that she is useful in some ways. They definitely put a spotlight on a lot of incidents that would otherwise go unreported. But I feel like sometimes that work feels or appears to be secondary to their self-promotion. And that's where my issue is. And you know, she's not alone. It's like a whole bunch of them. You know, it's her, it's Sean King, and it's just a variety of other people who are just, you know, even DeRay McKesson. Like, all those people to me strike me as being more driven by personal gain. Winners and losers, Nneka, because you are the guest host, I will let you go first.
Okay. Cool. So I think, honestly, I was racking my brain on this. I think Issa Rae has to be my winner. She just did a spread. I think it was
Hollywood Reporter.
Yes. I don't know. She's just a breath of fresh air to me. Every time I see her, I'm reminded of the strength and versatility of Black women. When I saw it, I was inspired. I was uplifted. I always just feel like and going back to what you just said, she truly embodies what she stands for. And to the point where now just simple imagery brings to me, you know, the question of what can I be doing more of in this space? So I don't know what it is. I just love Issa. And when I saw her spread, I was like, Issa, girl, you can't lose in my book. So she's my girl. Like, she's my friend in my head. I just love her. I think the biggest loser is going to have to be Tory Lanez for me.
Of course.
I mean, for the obvious reasons.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. No explanation. I thought you were going to give an explanation, but actually none.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
None needed. Mic drop.
It's a mic drop.
So my winner of the week will have to be Keke Palmer. First of all, she has, you know, every single job there is. She's hosting the VMAs, and, you know, she has this thing and that thing, this gig, that gig. Yeah. But also, I think there's nothing better than being vindicated, you know, long after the fact. You know, she did tell us, you know, that Trey Songz had questionable ways. And at the time, I think because, you know, there was I mean, I guess there was a propensity to trivialize her situation because he didn't really do anything to her. She was just in his music video against her wishes. And that seems like a relatively minor thing, but I mean, if someone has asked you to not do something like that and is asking, you know, I don't want to be in this video, I've built this brand, you should respect that. And so, you know, now I think people are starting to see that maybe there was a bit of truth to what she was saying, and I'm happy for her. Now, my losers, of course, Tory Lanez for sure. He's earned his spot, and I think I hope he gets what's coming to him. But we'll see. My second loser will be Tamika Mallory. And I think for a long time, she's kind of set my spidey senses off. She's always struck me as someone who was just not really, really as about the cause as she purports herself to be. And hopefully, I'm happy there's a bit of an awakening about her and a lot of the other people who claim that they're, doing activist work. And so hopefully we get more honest actors and more committed people as opposed to people who are just trying to be famous. Nneka, thank you so much for stopping by. It was a blast. I hope you come back. And before we leave, please plug your social media.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thanks so much for having me. Enjoyed, pretending I'm young and in the loop with you.
Of course.
Appreciate that. But yeah, you guys can find Vanede on Instagram. Vanede is spelled V for Victor, A for Apple, N for Nancy, E for Edward, D for dog, E for Edward, _US. And also, I would actually direct you to our website as well. Same vanity-us.com. We love you to check out our blogs, interact with us on there. If you're interested also in booking for any events or workshops or collaborations, that's also a really great place to reach us. So yeah, we'd love to see you on there. And then we're also on Facebook, Vanity _US there as well.
Episode 20, No Hipsters Pod. Talk to you next time. Bye.